Welcome to the fourth episode of the City's End Pod. I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Terry Huddleston, artist and fellow Hoosier, as we talk about media and just life in general. Enjoy.
Yeah. What were you doing beforehand? Like
I just didn't. I really don't do a lot of. So I've always been super time greedy. Probably just growing up an only child for about 12 years until my mom and my little brother. Like you just learn to want to be doing what you want to be doing, and so the thought to be like I was kind of perfectly, well, somewhat perfectly inoculated from the internet era because it just didn't mesh with my personality type. So I just don't do a lot of social streaming, Discord. I do like none of it appeals to me. I'm not judging it. I'm making a moral call on it.
yeah.
It's just like it's like a genre of music. Like just because I don't like it, don't mean it's bad, but it's just not something I crave as a day to day. But as a tool, like oh man, I forgot I had this tool where we can do Star Trek shit and, and talk over the screen. It's useful. So that's what I was saying. Like 2020 definitely pulled me more. Like, oh, okay, yeah, this is a thing I need to be thinking about for practical purposes, not necessarily for social engagements, but doing this right here. So
sick. Yeah, it was weird doing school with it, but I'm glad that's just no longer. We still have to practice Zoom sessions here and there. Well, I guess the professor probably, I don't know. But
it's nice to have a virtual if you look at what obviously the context of Zoom versus Skype and all that shit, and I think on the face of it, what I'm saying sounds weird about how I wasn't into it, but I think the world wasn't into it, but it was like, oh shit, it has this practical application that doesn't involve streaming games or any of that. Like you don't have to. It's almost like closed captioning for hearing impaired. Like yeah, it was built for that community, but it has a broader effect. It's like, oh man, this is actually pretty useful for other reasons. Like you can't turn the TV up or Tom Hardy's talking or whatever. So it's I think that's how I look at a lot of social media technology. Like I'm definitely glad it's here, and I think it can go beyond the scope of its original creation sometimes.
When you talking about social media, what do you think about TikTok?
I don't have a TikTok. Like I said, once again, like TikTok is probably I know almost everybody else does. I know I'm in the minority of people that do not. I know that there is eyeballs on there, but I've reached a saturation point to where like I'm doing pretty good as an individual that can realistically do the art content I do and travel like I do and then parent like I do, where I'm doing like the max of all of that. And so like I just can't see myself once again getting in a platform that's going to demand that much of your time and energy. I feel like it's distinctly created for either young people or people that are I mean, there's like a little bit of everybody on TikTok, but I just think like for what I do, I'm literally a crafts person, so I gotta literally be focusing on the craft. And I got enough money and fans and stuff to where I don't really feel like I need to be putting a lot of energy into getting more people to like me. I just need to be putting energy into putting out content that isn't shit. So, and I think a lot of people do get that reverse where they're like, no, it's a numbers game, get 1 million followers. It's like, yeah, that's something, but like when you got 1 million bosses, like your content gets spread thin, like Laffy Taffy, and so sometimes it's better. Like my Instagram, I think I'm under 10K, nothing great, but those are like 10,000 real people or just under that I met over the course of doing this, and they take care of me. I take care of them.
Yep.
So, yeah. So TikTok, I'm not against it. I just don't. just it seems like way too much of a time sink.
Yeah, it does definitely take your time. You can hop down a rabbit hole pretty quick.
Yep, I'll see my daughter do it. My
Yeah.
daughter has one, and it's like weird to watch. It's weird to be on the outside of that, looking in. I'm sure it's just like, looking at somebody's porn habit from the outside is weird. It's cool to you, but like when you're like, hey, that's kind of weird that you're just like, you're just scrolling, scroll. And it's just like, you're not even like, how did you even take in information
Yeah.
at that point? And so it's an interesting phenomenon to me.
Yeah.
Because even when I watch a lot, like YouTube's got me. YouTube's where I'm a hypocrite, but only as a viewer. I don't have a YouTube channel that's worth a damn. I started one a long time ago, but I haven't even been to my own site in probably over 10 years. But I do watch a lot of long form videos. Love them. Can't get enough of them. So if it's like an 8-hour retrospective of Silent Hill, like I'm clicking that on and I'm going to be drawing all day. So yeah, that's got me.
Do you have like a favorite YouTube clip that you go back to?
I watch a lot of actually I watch a lot of video game lore and just lore videos in general. I've just always been curious about, especially like stuff that I feel like the threshold to get into them is past. Like you're never gonna, let's say, be able to catch up on One Piece. Not if you're a grown ass man. Like there's just not enough hours in a day to just effectively start from the beginning and catch up to now. So I'll watch a big 3-hour explanation of what happened in One Piece or Elden Ring lore from software games. And sometimes I watch some social commentary type stuff that's usually a documentary that just somebody put on YouTube. Now when I first got into YouTube, luckily for me, I kind of came at it from, like when I got into it heavy, from an academic kind of mindset. And so I still kind of have that. I got to be learning something from YouTube.
Yeah.
It just can't be like mindless entertainment. And then, when I want to watch a TV show or something, I got all the subscriptions to whatever. So I'll pop over to HBO Max or Netflix or whatever and watch a show. But I'm finding it harder and harder and harder to commit to TV. I think everybody is, though. I don't think that's just me.
It's getting kind of boring for me, to be honest.
Yeah, well, I think it's a negative thing that's going to lead to a good thing, which in the negative part is I think there's an oversaturation of content now. But I think what's going to happen is, and it happens with any ecosystem. It's like with dinosaurs. The two big to fail ones are going to melt down, and you're going to get like a few again that are really good. Because I think, unfortunately, TV got very, they found the formula of cinema, but they also were obviously not trying to lose money. So they would basically do the formula that works. And we just came out of this zeitgeist of, I'm dubbing it white guys behaving badly cinema, whether it be cinema or TV shows, where it's the hook is that it's a white guy. And you're like, what are you talking about? Like, Breaking Bad, if it's a black guy, isn't novel at all.
No.
Yeah, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like they made him into Ned Flanders. What if Ned Flanders becomes a big drug dealer? And this really appealed to white sensibilities, because it's like, oh man, it was almost like the gangster rap for white people. Like we too could get in on the mythology of just being an off the grid libertarian drug dealer. They did it with Mad Men was another one. So I think The Sopranos started it, where because they have this, the way you can tell is that they have this this tell, because they're always family men. They're never just like lone. They have a family to take care of. Most of the time they have a disease, like right in the first season, oh, he's gonna die of cancer, he's gonna die of this, or something bad is gonna happen to him. But then it doesn't, obviously, because they would have a show, but it builds the drama. They're even using it again in House of the Dragon. It's like using the king's gonna die of something, and watch people fight over power. Now they're not doing obviously drug sales, but it's still white people behaving badly. And, let's watch, 8 seasons of that. And personally, like, I got sick of that. And so I kind of like, I was like, all right, if I watch one more white criminal class person fell up for like years, I can't take this anymore. Especially, and I think what finally my breaking point was the ending of Breaking Bad, when I felt like they didn't even show the repercussions of all the drugs he sold. And it just was, they kind of gave him this kind of heroic, send off. And I felt like Pinkman should have been the one to kill him. Like, that was the only way that story ends, is that Pinkman, who you hate in the beginning, arcs to like somebody you actually respect, and Walter White goes the opposite. But they literally shelved Pinkman. That's what they had to do, a fucking extra add-on thing. Like, oh yeah, we forgot to end this character's arc correctly. And you probably pick it up. I'm a story guy. I'm like, there's like an opinion and all that, objective opinion, but I'm literally a story surgeon. Like, it's not that I like it because I like it, and I don't like it because I don't like it. Like, I know how stories are supposed to work. And that story was not supposed to end the way that 5th chapter ended. It was, they were setting up in the show, in the context of the show, that Pinkman was gonna find out that Walter White killed that kid that he was raising with the girl. And fucking, they never paid that off. It was just like, yeah, he just gets to do stuff because he's the coolest character in the world. And even to this day, people will still wear Walter White. Like, imagine, like, in the Black community, somebody just walking around with like cocaine rocks on their shirt. Like, it's just pop culture. Like that, people talk about what white privilege is. Like, that is the height of white privilege. Like, you get to walk around with crystal meth, like one of the most deadliest drugs. I live in Indiana. Like, I see the effects of crystal meth. Like, it is worse. It is 10 times worse than crack. Like, I would, somebody put a gun in my head, I'm like, give me some crack any day, because this isn't gonna melt my face. But this is what I was getting at with the show. They never even showed the meth heads, like, on a massive scale. Like, man, look, what would this do to come? But they're always sure, and I'm gonna get off the subject, but they're always sure to show the devastating effects of drugs in the Black community. But they skirted right around that with this. Like, no. And to my last point, why I put this as a genre of what I call, like I said, white guys behaving badly, is that there's always another patina. There's a family man patina, but there's always he kind of suddenly beats the other minorities. Like, one at a time, he outsmarts the Blacks, the Mexicans, the Chinese, if they come in. Every show, you can pick a show, there's always this racialized adversary that's like, this foreign other is going to take what belongs rightfully to this guy, and he's been a masculine in the past, but he's going to get back his masculinity by doing a thing, and you can fill in the plot. So anyway, so that got me bored with television. But now I'm finally, because I want to harp on something I do like, which a lot of people aren't liking, actually. People are loving House of the Dragon, which I think is mediocre at best. Still watch every episode, but because it's fantasy. But Rings of Power is coming with the heat for me, man. Like, that is one of the most gorgeous shows I've ever seen put to film, period. So, yeah.
I haven't been watching much TV. I need to catch up on the both of them, actually.
If you're an artist of any type, Rings of Power is just gorgeous. Not only is it gorgeous, like, the storytelling is very unpretentious, so it's simple. It isn't like, let's ground it in reality. Yeah, magic is magic, and just deal with it. Like, I'm so sick of grounded fantasy. Like, okay, we got it. Like, reality actually kind of sucks already, and we got enough shit in our reality to feel like wizards already. We're talking on one of them. This is a crystal ball in any fact. Like, quit trying to ground the fantasy in reality. Make it fantastical. Show me something different from reality. I think that's one of the jobs of art, is to do, to give us some kind of escape. Not the only job, but definitely one of them. So, yeah.
I hear people debate the phrase, so have it written down here. Where's it at? That's on a different page. Anyway, that either art represents reality or reality represents art. What's your answer on that question?
Probably being the insufferable centrist that I am, it's like the two are intrinsically linked. I think I think art is always like it, like art doesn't exist without the human experience, obviously. Like it's like a weird, it's really an illusion. Like a lot of reality obviously is an illusion, but because we can perceive things as things, then it starts this initial. I always say, like, I'm not a Christian, but I always say, like, I could see whatever substance early man ate, it started a bifurcation of our brain where we always had to categorize things by dichotomies. So if there's an up, then there has to be a down. If there's a east, there has to be a west. And it goes into infinite. Like, hey, if there's a dark skin, there's a light skin. See what I'm saying? It's like, like if we have this, oh, how come things just can't be things? That's like any idiot who says that, it's like, shut up, dude. Like we're never going back. We literally would be animals if it was just things are things, you know. But the fact that we're the human animal, we have this extra module that's able to see what to a bee is just this flower that has nectar in it. We're like, oh my God, it's a beautiful work of art that kind of reminds me of a vagina, because we can do similes and our brains kind of weird like that. Like it just can't be a flower. Like this flower represents something else, but it really doesn't. Mm-hmm. It just represents itself. But our particular human neuroses won't let us let anything represent just what it is. You know, you've seen sometimes a pipe is just a pipe picture, which is meta commentary, because even that isn't a pipe. It's a picture of a pipe that represents a pipe with words on the bottom that are also not the pipe that represent a pipe. And so that's why that picture, if you ever seen it, is so genius, because we can't get out of the fact that we interpret everything we see, which is why there's no objective truth to be had, because even blue, my blue ain't the same blue you're looking at. Yep. You know, none of us can perceive indigo right? Like and that's actually a good thing, especially as an artist, because we have an infinite number of not only tastes, but it like hunger. Like you get hungry for something visually stimulating, just like you would with a food appetite. I mean, obviously, this evolved in us for a reason, but if you find the earliest cave bones, the humans, you're gonna see on that cave wall is gonna be a painting of like a herd of animals or some shit. Like art has always, that's what I'm saying, it's always been with us. We've always had the need. You gotta think they're in the fucking dark, man, candlelight. Mm-hmm. And they gotta eat and they're chilling, and you got Emotet is on the wall just drawing or whatever the fuck he's doing. And they're just like, yeah, do that, man. We'll go get meat. We'll bring back some shit. But yeah, you keep doing it. That's dope. Because what else do they have? They got the starry night, but there's shit outside that'll kill you quick. So when you're in the shelter of a cave, they still want to have some facsimile of something that represents outside, which is why most art, even to this day, is landscapes, scenery, flowers. Like I said, it's still built back into the human need to feel like we're not in a cage. So, or an enclosure, I would say, because a cage is still a human construct, but enclosures are very natural. So
I think it's interesting to think about the difference between the need of the art and then like the, I guess, desire or want to produce it now. Because like then I guess in that case with like paintings on the wall, like it's more necessity because they're trying to communicate. Like in the sense, it's kind of like the first people trying to discuss what's going on tomorrow. Like we're gonna go hunt or something. This is what I saw. We're gonna go to this place. And then like now we're just like we don't communicate it through it like in that sense. I guess it's usually like a broader context that we're trying.
Well, we kind of do actually. So I think that's what TikTok and social media is. It's the new visual hieroglyphic of I'm going to show you a series of images that communicate how I want you to see me, like as a person. And, at best, at worst, is I'm going to communicate how I want you to see other people, which is what people are finding the dark side of social media, like, or really the internet. The initial internet proprietors really discounted the fact that they thought, okay, this is going to be a great way for humans to express themselves. And, it's going to be uncontrolled, libertarian. People will be able to say what they want, be who they want. And then they forgot of the darker powers of the human societies, is that we always have to have enemies. We always need, if we don't have any, we'll manufacture some. And so it got from being, the MySpace days, early in there, people with their wacky face pages that they would adorn with all kind. It was all like the bedazzle of the internet, MySpace, when people would put all kind of crazy shit on the page because they wanted to, like, hey, this is me. It's like if you just put your life in code, HTML code, But now the platforms came in, and so people lost that expression of individuality, and so we have to find it in other things. But we also got sorted into groups now. Instead of a bunch of weird individuals online, it's a bunch of weird groups online that are kind of going against other groups. And once again, I feel like an anthropologist, because I'm not online, I'm not triggered by all of the internet discourse. So when I see you just post any type of post, there's like I'm always reading these thick paragraph rap battles after something was said about people arguing about, and you can see how it begins, how somebody goes, hey, I like the new Little Mermaid, and then all of a sudden, like, you could tell the people sweat, oh man, this is our chance. Let's go in and say what we got to say. Then there's a response to that, but then another group responds to that, and it's an all-out battle. But the thing, it is what I want to get at with my whole point. That's the point of the internet to people now. Like, to me, the point is to just say what I got to say effectively and smoothly. But I feel like increasingly the point of the internet is to get in there and be an internet gladiator. And like, you feel bad, nobody comments on your stuff, like, oh man, I didn't get any type of heat for this thing. I got to go more extreme. And I think that's why people get drawn to, especially the alt-right, because the more extreme statements gets those clicks, gets those people commenting like, oh, what do you mean the Holocaust never happened? And so that's just one facet of the internet. I do got the antidote to internet hive mind, though, is travel. I travel a lot. And so I'm inoculated from the worst thoughts I could be thinking about society, because I just meet too much of it in real life by the thousands all across the country. So it's hard for me to just have a blanket statement of like, all white people are like fill in the blank. All black people are like this. All women are like this. All men are like this. And so thank goodness for that, though. If it wasn't for that, I probably would definitely be, just entrenched with what I think I know based on the limited funnel of information you get from whatever media you decide to consume.
Yep. Travel is a great way. It's kind of like the best way to see the world.
It's the best way. Like, there's no other way. Like digital does not make up from like realizing how many people are in New York, how terrible it smells, shit like that. Like, you need to know how brown it is, like, if you just go off of Seinfeld and Friends, and I love Seinfeld, not Friends, but Seinfeld I did. You think New York was white as hell. You think it's just full of Jews and white people running around living like, no, like, there's barely any white people in New York. Not on those numbers. Like, where 7 of them are in a diner, jobless and friends, like living in upstate New York. Like, no, that's not, but that's all some people know of that particular city, and that's why a lot of political people that do get radicalized, all they know is TV talk. You gotta listen for people that are just like, all their information is movies and TV. You'd be amazed at like, damn, you haven't done anything, have you? Like, it's, well, I was watching Die Hard and Hans Gruber. Like, wait a minute, dude. Like, you can't just build a whole thing off of, you know, pop culture. Speaking of art, that's the other downside of art today, is that we've built such a comprehensive dome of art that people can live in a facsimile of reality that's really just curated for them. Because even the news is art now.
Oh yeah.
And the art form is pissing you to fuck off. And they're really good at it. And I know, because I'm like a news vegan, where I don't really consume a lot of news, if any. Like, it has to bubble to the surface for me to like look into it. Like, I gotta hear, like, dude, you hear about like a meteor hitting DC and just turning into a crater? Like, holy shit, let me look into that. But if it's like the day-to-day, did you hear what Biden said? You hear what Trump said? Like, I don't give a shit about what either party is saying, because it, at the end of the day, and I've proven it, it doesn't really affect your day-to-day. Like, even if they do like shit like Roe v. Wade, you're gonna be pissed off for like a month or hell, even a year, but then you're gonna go to work and do whatever the hell it is you do. And you realize that both news outlets from the left and the right are using this to keep you engaged in their thing. Like,
Yeah.
aren't you happy about this thing happen, or aren't you pissed off about this thing happen? Which is why I realized that conservatives do way better when they're on the back foot. Their viewers are just super engaged on Fox News because they want to get any glimmer of cope of like, oh yeah, we're gonna be back, and we'll, you know, and so once again, as an art form, as entertainment, it's interesting to see how it's like something that, like, oh, if somebody ever told you, can art be evil? You're like, no, of course not, but of course it can. I mean,
Yeah.
it's been used for propaganda, right? And so art's a very powerful tool. And by evil, I don't mean to be like a 2-year-old. Like, it's evil, but can it be used to cause harm to other human beings? I guess is a better phrasing. Hell yeah. And
Most
you think
certainly.
it wouldn't, right? Like, art, yeah, art can get people killed, you know, and it can get people out of poverty. It's a strange, it's just a form of communication. It's just a very dreamlike form of communication that doesn't really come across necessarily. I'm talking about, you know, like paintings and stuff, because obviously writing is an art, like words do, but visual medium, like you can go, your background, it's a very, you know, dreamlike image of Earth,
Yeah.
you know, from the dark side of Earth, you know, that's meant to invoke an expansive feeling of, wow, look how insignificant we are, or whatever. Or
Kind
maybe
of.
you're a god and you're on top of the world. Who
No.
knows? You know, but that's the beauty of art, is everybody brings their own beer when it comes to interpretation. And so as an artist, you never want to be afraid of putting your art out there without an intended necessarily goal, because whatever your goal is anyway could get morphed and misconstrued 1,000 different ways to begin with.
Yep.
So
Sick. You said earlier you were talking about some type of divergence when people became creative and you had artists. Have you heard like the theories about ergot with that, and how it was like basically producing psilocybin in people's brains in certain ways that made people more creative?
So yeah, I have, obviously. That's why I reference it. I don't necessarily have, I'm not going to debate it, but I kind of believe it.
Yeah.
Like, it's something about it that's like, so I'm a sucker for creation myths. Like, absolutely. If you got any type of media or medium that's dealing with creation myths, I'm going to at least give you a shot. Just because we're, as Americans, we're like distinctly afraid to do creation stories. Like, and you're like, what are you talking about? I'm not talking about the Christian creation story. We don't do that one either. But we just don't like doing sort of about where we came from. And so it's either, hey, God created us and somehow we were white people in the beginning. That doesn't track. And we were already fully shaved and didn't look like, you know, Cro-Magnons either. Like, it's all kind of propaganda and dangerous imagery in the way we do our limited creation myths. So whatever, like, let's say a movie like Prometheus. I did like what was that movie called? I had David Tennant in it. Good Omens, I think. Good Omens. That was good. They dealt with the Christian creation myth, but they actually had African Americans, or Africans, I should say, because they were British. It's a big kind of mistake. As Adam and Eve, I was like, which I have never seen, like a dark skin too. They were like really dark skinned, Adam and Eve. And I think the apple definitely represents some primitive version of that story. There's a lot of, I study mythology too. There's a lot of different iterations of man ingesting something that opened his mind, stories. You can go, yeah, common with archetype, or man may have ingested something that opens his eyes. I also think this is just a hunch, got no good evidence for it, but it's one of those fun hunches that a lot of our demon and devil imagery comes from our battle with Cro-Magnon man. The fact that Cro-Magnon man did have the deeper set brow, and he was bigger than us, he had the guttural voice, but more bestial. I think we created stories around us conquering them, because we did. People forget that there were other types of men, and they didn't just go extinct. We either bred them out of existence or killed them. So, actually, hold on one second.
Yeah, man.
A random phone call. Hello? Oh, thank you. Sorry about that.
You're good, man.
But
The session's about to end in 5 minutes anyway.
All right, cool. So yeah, I do think that that's what I said about the bifurcation. I think once, and I was explaining to my son and another artist that it's hard to, it's easy to forget that skill is just neural pathways getting thicker and connecting. And so it's literally like a muscle, but just with a nervous system. So the only way you get better at something is just repeated doing it. But you get these thick ass gigachad neural connections that just allow you to basically transfer whatever is in your brain to a part of your body. Like it literally like becomes a thicker highway for that particular skill set. Like that, the nerve endings get so bulked up, like you just, which is why, whatever your offhand hand is, you suck at it because you don't use it. Same thing with the off foot, like it doesn't have the stick neural pathways. So it almost feels like, oh man, what the, how come I can't now? Obviously some people can train themselves to be ambidextrous and all that. But I think that once we took whatever we took, or whatever happened, we started basically thinking in more expansive ways. And I heard just another thing that goes with that same speech I was giving to somebody. I give a lot of speeches. Is I watched a TED talk called The Realm of Possibilities. And it was, I want to say like a minute, 3 minutes. It was short, but very powerful because it explained a phenomenon I couldn't articulate. And if you can imagine a thought pattern as a grid, and you're like, hey, I'm pro anime and I'm over here, I'm like anti-anime. I'm not, but let's just say I was. Like, how far away, how many different points on this grid would I have to be to get you closer to me and get me closer to you? And that's usually what happens. If you notice, you've had a family member or a friend that you guys fucking could not agree on something at a certain age, but now that you're older, you're like, one, the way you talk again, like, oh yeah, I'm totally down with anime. I think it's awesome. And you weren't there for all the different points on the grid that led you, and you're like, I'm totally down. Actually, I'm actually out of anime. I kind of hate it now. Like it, like life choices get you closer. And so what ends up happening with ideas, just like that nervous system, if you can imagine on the grid, like once it finally connects with one that's adjacent to it, you get this eureka moment. If you ever got that, like, oh my God, I
Yeah.
just had a crazy idea. That's literally that neuron going bloop. And now you connected like, holy shit, I can combine this, which has been on a whole different pathway, with this. Like, imagine the first people streaming fucking video games, right? Seems obvious now, but somebody had to make that connection. Like, I wonder, like, I'm gonna record myself playing a video game. Boom. Then they do it. They execute it. And then they execute it better, and it gets thicker and thicker. And so now it's just like an idea. It grows. We don't even think that's weird anymore. Like if somebody told you, hey man, I watch people play video games all day, you're like, yeah, cool.
I watch Twitch a lot.
Yeah, 20 years ago, I'd be like, dude, that's fucking weird. Why aren't you playing the video games? And that's a whole nother rabbit hole because of the mirror neurons. You actually do feel like you're playing video games.
Kinda.
By watching people play video games, your brain's like, hey, it's kind of like they're me. And then I get the added ASMR effect of them giving me commentary. So different parts of my brain are stimulated. And once again, creating neural pathways. So yeah.
My favorite streamers are the ones that will like talk about what they're doing and explain it. Cause like obviously they're better at the video game than me. And like if a unique situation pops up and they explain it, like automatically I'm following that person. That's my checkbox for a streamer.
Yep.
I like them a lot.
I love commentary. Love it. Just like that. Like I'll watch a show and then go watch like 20 videos longer than the show, just on the count. I want to hear the different, takes on it. And so I'm right there with you.
Yeah. All right. This session's about to end real quick. So do you want to hop onto the other one? Are you cool with
that?
We
can do that. I'll do that real quick. Yep.
Do you need to take a break or anything?
No, I think I'm good.
All right, cool. I kind of like the way we started too, but because we didn't do an introduction or anything, I might put this at the beginning or something. Terry, who are you? What do you do?
I'm just a guy that draws men in tights for a living, and travels the country selling prints of my art. But also, as a secondary RPG skill, I ingest a lot of storytelling and cinema, and books and stuff. So, like, storytelling is like my hobby now. That art is my career. So that's what I do.
That's awesome. And as we were talking about before, like storytelling is kind of through art too. I wanted to kind of bring up some of the similar commentary and connecting the conversation that we've had before, like with the neural pathways connecting and all that stuff. Like it reminds me of like life's kind of your choose your own adventure. And
sure.
Like we're talking on the phone, like new DLCs are just coming out all the time, and
yes,
you gotta kind of go develop new skills and things.
Yes, you do. Now, I think that's what people go wrong, is that they don't. It's interesting because I feel like corporations and just big institutions, really private institutions. I know people always blame the government, but it's like, no, private institutions have way more data on you than anybody. They know us better than we know ourselves. They know that most of us actually will work hard towards a goal, but they've also figured out a way to monetize that desire for short-term achievement, because when most of us aren't getting it in our careers. And the way they've effectively opiated and hijacked that is with video games. And yes, I'm a gamer. I'm not knocking video games. But whenever I hear people go, man, what you do sounds scary, man. And like, wow, I couldn't do what you do. But I'm like, but you're putting tens of thousands of hours into a video game, grinding up a digital character. It's an achievement placebo. Like, you feel like you've done a thing, but you're actually better off doing 100 hours of interviews with real people than you are doing 100 hours of, let's say, a video game where you interview people in a video game. That you literally don't get those neural pathways that you would get in actually doing the thing in real life. Because what it does is it jacks all the information into, yes, spatial awareness, you do get that. You do get hand-eye coordination, but you don't get the actual visceral skill set. Like, just because people can shoot in a game don't mean they can shoot in real life at all. a lot of people think they can, like, oh, it's like this completely different. There's like 1,000 things going on. And, you know, I was in the military as well. So I can tell you, like, none of those skills translated. I had to learn how to shoot a rifle. So I think if people treat video games like a relaxation method, for sure. And if it's going to be a lifestyle, that's one thing. And I think everybody kind of treat like, well, I'm going to be a pro gamer. Like, it's like I said, I'm going to be a pro, you know, musician, or I'm going to be an actor. That's why I watch all these movies, because I'm going to be an actor. Like, yeah, probably not. Like, the odds of that are super low. But you could learn how to make games. That would be useful. Not just consume them, but learn how to make them. Learn how to make movies. Learn how to make stories. Like, that's a more useful endeavor that also will synergize with your love of games. Not telling you not to love games. I do. My son does, but I also got him a high-end gaming PC that he was able to basically, I like gaming PCs for kids because they're forced to interact more with a piece of hardware than they would with a console. Yeah. So they're going to learn a skill to get that carrot. That carries the game. But then they're going to realize, like, man, I can really expand this game by going into the back end and messing around with the files and all that shit. And so they get, like, they literally just teach themselves how to do coding and computer stuff. And a lot of parents miss that book, goes right over their head. They're like, I'm not getting a computer because you don't deserve one. I'm like, oh my God, you are handicapping your kid for the future. They're like a video game console is not going to do jack shit for you in this new digital economy that we're increasingly embedding ourselves into. Yep. And so parents out there listening to this, if your kid is an avid gamer, you can't get him off the game, get him a PC or a laptop and let him game on that. I promise you, he will stumble into all the other wonderful things a PC can do. Whereas with a console, you only can literally do one thing, which is game. You can't go on and do any 3D modeling or whatever. So definitely get yourself an iPad Pro. And on that note, if you got a 2D artist, I would say get them an iPad Pro, only because they're really great devices for young artists, because everything they need is all in one device, and they can, when you're a kid and you're an artist, you're obsessed with it. So it's just like it becomes your new, you know, favorite thing. You're just always on it, drawing and getting the ideas out of your head. And so two devices I recommend there.
Cool. Yeah, I got an iPad and I do love drawing around on it sometimes. Not,
there you go.
I'm not an artist in that sense, but I do like.
Oh, everybody always puts practice. Hey, yeah. Look, and not to be blunt, even a shitty artist is an artist. Yeah. So there's no bracket where you're like, I'm done artist. Okay, artist. Like, you know. Yeah. So even if you're not good or you don't consider you're one of us. I mean, it's like saying, it's like I do a little plumbing on the side, but I'm not a plumber. Like, yes, you are. You might not be an active plumber, but you know, it's a skilled labor, and that's all art is just skilled labor. That's it. Like we put the mystification on it, but oh my God, like dancing, all that stuff, but it's just skilled labor. It's just something you put a lot of hours into getting good at, because a lot of people do this. This is like the white privilege of art, I will admit, because people assume it's this gift you got from the gods, and man, you're lucky to get this gift. But it's also kind of demeaning, because it's like taking away all the work and time you put into to not be terrible. Because I start off as a terrible artist. Everybody does. Everybody does. Now, some people could make those neural pathway connections way quicker. That is a genetic thing where, like, you see people, they can just pick up something, all of a sudden they like got it down. That's because their brain is forming those connections quicker. I don't got that. So, you know, it took me a while to get not terrible at art.
I guess kind of on the art vein, how did Comic-Con go? How long have you been going to that?
Oh man, I've been doing it as a career for a little under 15 years now. And you know, that's where I got the gaming analogy from, because at that time I was probably like an alcoholic. I was gaming too much versus not doing what I should have been doing to advance my reality. And that's why I'm so hardcore against not necessarily against gaming, but against people that are like, oh man, I wish I could be a musician, but all they do is game. It's like, well, no, you need to be being a terrible guitar person first, and then you'll day by day. And we back on the gaming thing too. They've also given us a thing where in real life we don't want to be terrible at anything, especially the older you get, the less, including me. Like you don't want to be terrible at stuff, like where you're just awful at it. But video games, we don't mind playing a game we never played before and learning and dying a bunch of times. I'm a big From Software fan, and getting better and grinding in a game. But in real life, we just won't do it. Like people fail one time, they got to go to therapy. Like, oh my God, it went terrible. I was so humiliated. I'll never, be a stand-up comedian again or whatever the hell it was. But it's like, no, just get up there and tell better jokes. And okay, you gotta chuckle. That's something. Yes, they booed you for 90% of it, but that 10%, that's literally how comedians work. Like, okay, that worked. All right. And art's the same way, where you need, just like being a comedian or any type of theater, you need an audience to let you know where you're at. Can't be insular. Can't be like, I think it's cool. Like, there's a lot of artists that say that bullshit, but you're not making any money unless other people think it's cool.
Yeah.
Like, otherwise, we'd all be billionaires. Like, I think this is worth $1 billion. Like, no, it's all about what, once again, those infinite number of perceptors think about your stuff. And once you can kind of dial in a frequency, okay, like where I'm getting this batch of demographic people to like what I'm doing, then you're cooking with fire. You're not obviously not going to get everybody to like everything all at once, but as an artist, you only need a little piece of the pie. And I mean a little piece of the pie. Like if you got 10 people that give a shit about you and your art, you're good to go. Like you're gonna be able to make a decent, living just taking care of those 10 clients. And then there's a threshold on the opposite end where you can't actually handle 1,000 art clients, like as an individual artist, not effectively, not with good art. This is what I was saying before about you don't want to spread your bandwidth too wide with other things. Same thing with art clients. You want to keep it to where, hey, I can really take care of these clients very effectively and live very effectively. Like you can't really use a capitalist mindset on art just because, once again, you're the bottleneck. So unless you can reproduce you, then you're in trouble. And most people can't. So when you start, once again, a skilled labor, like if you go to Bob's butcher shop, you don't want like Greg cutting the meat. Like I want the guy on the sign. Yeah. Like I don't want Greg, I want Bob. Like I'm paying the money for Bob. I'm not paying for lackluster Greg. So, and these are fake people. So if you're Bob or Greg out there, I'm sorry. But so yeah.
It's only at 31%.
Okay, thanks. That's how that goes.
Yeah. Shit, I got all my questions pretty much in your one spiel there.
Oh, cool.
Would you say, or I guess here's a better question. Do you cosplay or dress up when you go to Comic-Con at all?
I mean, I think I cosplay me. That's about it. But yeah, I don't cosplay at all. I just wear my blue and black get up, and that's about it. I really don't have a desire to do that personally. I got nothing against it. I love it. I love the fact that I actually give cosplayers a discount in my booth just because, if they buy the character that they're dressed as, just to kind of give them a little incentive, just to like, hey, cool, I got a coupon for being me. Yeah. I think it's a cool thing. It definitely makes so I've been going to Comic-Con long enough to before that was a thing, and trust me, it was boring to look at. Like, thank God women want to come to Comic-Con and sexy young handsome guys as well, because trust me, it'd be a bunch of that guy off The Simpsons with the t-shirt overlapping his belly and long hair, and yeah. So thank God the cool kids want to join us.
Yeah, that's cool. I need to go sometime. It looks cool. I used to watch videos on it every year, but I don't do that much anymore, sadly. But
no, it's very fun.
Really cool experience.
It's very fun.
They I don't know which con it is. I think it's a Comic Con that comes to Indianapolis, right?
Mhm.
Well, I've been
No, they
downtown
got
a couple
no,
times.
they got Indianapolis Comic Con, and then I think there's Indie Pop Con that comes in Indianapolis. I'm sure there's other ones, but those are the two that I'm aware of. I don't want to steer you wrong.
It's one of the two. I remember seeing people walking around all the time. It's usually like during a Colts game or something too. So you got different crowds mixing together.
Mm-hmm.
Next question here. Coming on to something different. Who's your favorite like world figure, philosopher, economist, leader, something like that?
Shoot, I guess there's a documentarian named Adam Curtis. I really got a lot of respect for him, just because he always finds a way with every documentary he comes out with to articulate something that's been like living in my brain rent free, but I couldn't get it out. And sometimes obviously, people feel like you're going a little insane, and then you got confirmation bias, but like with his stuff, it's articulated in such a weirdly nuanced way as to how I'm thinking it. I know, like, okay, I'm not crazy. Just like I like my I haven't heard anybody really dive deep into my white people behaving badly zeitgeist. They might not even be aware of being a phenomenon, but he would call something like, yeah, like pretty much. And I'm not gonna get into anything political in that sense, but like I felt like pop culture wise, we were prepping for Trump for a long time. Like once again, like just irreverent, like misogynistic white guys was like all we were eating for like the last 15 years. And so that's why people were like, yeah, he's cool. Like, oh, your third wife, no problem. Like all the stuff that traditionally was a problem in white society was not a problem by the time he got into office. Because of 9/11, the American psyche shifted into this dark place where white people wanted revenge on minorities. I'm just gonna be blunt. Like you can dispute it, but it's in the cinema. You can see that every movie was like a brown person or really a brown collective being murdered by a non-brown person. They just now obviously came out of that. And now when you see a Muslim character, he's not the terrorist in the movies now, but for the last, 15 years, that's how it was. And they unapologetically did. They never apologized for the fact that, in my opinion, that Hollywood was probably more responsible for a lot of the hatred for just about every people group than any government body, in my opinion. Like they did the heavy lifting. Once again, this is why I reference that people get their info off of TV and movies now. Like they don't. That's how they like, hey, you know what? They could build a bomb. Like, how do you even know that? Because that movie I watched, they had a sleeper cell and they were like, dude, that's a James Bond plot, dude. Like that's literally fortresses inside of mountains. That shit ain't real. Right. So anyway, yeah, Adam Curtis, my favorite public figure. If we're gonna be like generic, I got a lot of respect for Obama just for what the poise he has that I don't have. Like I literally would have said some shit out of pocket, had I been in his position. Like, man, if this dude had like an infinite grace hack or something, and then to see somebody that comes after him not have that tact, you saw like the difference. Like anybody that said anything negative about the guy that came after, like he was pretty much acting like he was on Twitter, but in real life, like he would say the craziest shit online. So, he's a guy, on a national scale, I can't help but not respect China. I know we're supposed to hate them, but like the way they're winning this game is very unique because they're not colonizing and they're not using like direct violence like we had in the past and other European superpowers. They're using money to basically build infrastructure in places that they want stuff from.
Yeah.
It's almost like duh, but interesting at the same time. Like we're always like, hey, go in there, you conquer them, you take them. It's like, Oh, we're just gonna go in there and build roads and a power system and all that stuff. So even if this goes bad, they still, to me, I'm like, if I had to pick a way to be exploited, that'd be it. Like if they're saying like, hey, we're gonna get all African Americans to pick cotton, but like you're gonna have all the infrastructure that went with the cotton, you're gonna get to keep that. Like it's because we got to pick the cotton, but we didn't even get to keep the infrastructure. That's why people go, oh, come, you know, I'm not gonna get into that, but like that's why, because we didn't get we did the labor, we didn't get any of the fruits of the labor of any type. So you know, I slow clap for China, like, you know what? If I'm an alien watching this planet, like you guys are killing it. Because not only, once again, if you travel, you know this, every major city has a Chinatown. And so they have enough numbers here to where nobody here politically can come after them, like, and try to demonize them in a marginalized way, because they have too much economic power and they have too much people power. And so as a minority myself, it's like, damn, that's why they broke the economic stuff a long time ago. So we can never, you know, have a collective bargaining power that way. And you know, it's fascinating to see somebody with that big of a language barrier kick so much ass on a global scale. I mean, and then you see their big brother Russia, not so great. You know, they're kind of so it's just, I mean, this really, it sounds like I'm being political, but I'm not. This comes from storytelling. Like if you know the story of China, man, they're like an ultra patient nation. Like they're 5,000 years old, man. Like they're not like some new upstart that just started. And we literally had nothing to just kind of wag our finger at them, like, what do you even know about anything? And I'm always pushing back at people like, oh, cheap Chinese, because I'm like, you know, the expensive stuff is made in China too, right? Like it's like your iPad, all that shit's still made over there. Like that myth of like, oh, they're cheap, the goods are cheap, everything. Like, no, like they effectively took what was America's industrialization and use it to enrich themselves. And if you're like, okay, Terry, like, what do you want us to do? This is actually back on subject. I think that we should do two things. I don't think there's any non-radical ideas that are going to be effective anymore. So, you know, all the basic bullshit is out the window. We should do a nationwide, we should do a fifth branch of the military, but call it the workforce. It's kind of like the Peace Corps, but in America. They don't fight wars. They don't get guns. They don't get any of that. But you go through the same type of boot camp, because in the military, they teach us skill sets. Like you have to have a useful skill to be a service member. So you can't just, like, I'm here to, because most of the time it's really just think of the military like Walmart. Like think of that, like everybody in there is in uniform. You got military cashiers, military stock boys. The military is just like that. They literally have all those functions because they're little micro civilizations. So everybody has to be able to do something in the civilization. But I want to take that skill side of it and basically make sure every able-bodied and people that aren't able-bodied, let's say that they are in a wheelchair. Like I would actually even have, just like, look, there's people that want to do Special Olympics. I would even have a special version of this thing for people that want to do it. Like, hey, yeah, you might be handicapped, but they still want to, because to me, it's kind of like, so now they can't, they're useless to us. Like, no, let's figure out a way to get them a piece of the pie. So you do 2 years in this workforce, we deploy you to every major place that needs infrastructure. It doesn't even have to be a big city, it could just be a podunk city in the middle of nowhere. You descend on it, you guys build bridges, sidewalks, lighting, then you get deployed somewhere else. But it goes back to what we talked about before. You get that travel in there, you get the skill sets, you get the camaraderie of all these different walks of life being immersed together in this really painful boot camp experience. But trust me, nothing bums people like pain, you know, and suffering. The second thing I would do is I would pour money into micro businesses. So what you're doing, I would give you thousands of dollars to do what you're doing. I would give me, now I don't need it now, but in the beginning, I kind of got that from the Bush Jr. child tax credit thing. Gave me like, and then I got, I was on welfare, and we had Medicaid. So I had all the bases covered, which gave me the ability to take some calculated risks. And I'm like, why haven't we made a formalized version of this? Call it whatever you want, the Patriot Stimulation Act, to make people not feel like they're taking food stamps and money from the government. But I swear to you, I'm now in a different income bracket that people would not believe. And it's because of welfare, not despite it. People, oh, welfare makes people lazy. Like, no, it didn't. It made me more ambitious to know that my kids get to eat and have their medical needs taken care of, no matter what my dumb ass is doing. If my comic book venture goes belly up, I didn't cause them to suffer. But we have a society that metaphorically grabs your kids, grabs your health. They put a gun in their head like, hey, you're going to come work this 9 to 5, or these kids ain't getting taken care of. What? You think you just, and so people do it and they don't follow their dreams. They don't follow their ambitions, or in a young people case, they wait a long time to have kids because they're like, well, I don't want to like sacrifice this for that. And so, I don't understand why as a society, we are pouring money into micro businesses, because a micro business is very good for the economy. One, two, you make a lot of money with a micro business. And why am I saying micro business instead of small business? Because small businesses have employees. I'm talking about just you. Like, how can we get you to make 6 figures a year? Like, what are the steps needed to where, because a bunch of you making 6 figures a year is great for me. Why? Because you're going to spend money with me, because you're making a lot of money and you're going to spread it around. And guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to make a lot more money and I'm going to spread it around too. It's a trickle up mindset other than a trickle down, because we all know that people spend money. They learn this intrinsically, because I had this idea for over many, many years. I think I was in my 20s. I'm 44 now, because of how I explained to you how I kind of realized, like, damn, a little bit of government help is kind of nice. But then when the stimulus checks came out, the economy was booming again, even though we're in a pandemic, because people were spending it on whatever. And so it lets me know that people can say the inflation, but that shit is not anything to do with what we just did. That has everything to do with the housing crisis we never actually took care of. But not gonna get into that. So I would basically try to spread a bunch of skills across the country due to my workforce thing, and I would invest in a bunch of micro business entrepreneurs. But really, I'm looking for sole individuals. I'm not looking for people starting companies. Like, I think this incessant need to get people to hire people, I think, is the wrong-headed. Like, I need to get a bunch, like a million of yous viable in what you're doing. And then that will make not only the economy more stable, it'll make society more stable. Because now you're not this lone individual that's feeling isolated. You're like, hey, I'm a part of the whole thing too. And now I'm going to get married. I'm going to have kids. I'm going to do the heterodox stuff that they want us to do because I can afford it. College is another thing. I don't know why as a country we charge for college. We should have a free, there should be a college you pay for. Like, if I want a Harvard education, go ahead and pay for that. But there should be a free government college. Why wouldn't we want our citizens to learn what they want to learn? Like, it doesn't even make, like, there's no way you can explain it to me where I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense, while we're putting a money value on our citizens learning things.
I think it's because it increases the value of it.
But it also, it doesn't.
It doesn't. No.
It doesn't increase the value of it. And that is the prevailing, like, well, if everybody can get it, then what's the use of me? It's like, because we're all that much more educated as a society. One, two, now you have a point where you get the worst of both worlds. You've paid for a valuable education that's useless. I see so much of that. I went to college for a semester and a half, and then due to hitting staff sergeant in the military, I got an associate's degree. But other than that, man, I got terrible grades in school because I'm just not an academic guy when it came to doing schoolwork. I love academic stuff, but I don't want to do the fucking schoolwork. Nobody does.
Yeah.
You know, but I'm making probably more than some low-level football players make right now doing what I do. So, and this is why, and I'm not saying like I'm a self-made man. I just told you the opposite of that. Like, hey, let's fucking help people that are starting at the bottom rung of this, but they also have ambition. And then the counter arguments, what about the people that are going to waste the money on drugs, sex, and rock and roll? Like they're already doing that, or they're going to be doing that. I hate this mindset. This is something to take with you too in life. Don't ever let like the fly in the soup ruin the possibility of you doing something great. And here's what I mean. I got this invention. It's you know, we're horse and buggy right now. This invention I got is gonna allow us to get from point A to point B in a matter of minutes instead of days. It's gonna pollute the earth and it's gonna kill 3.8 million people a year. It's called a car. You want to do it? That's not how they pitch that.
Yeah.
Right? Like, but that's how people pitch things now. Like, well, if we do free healthcare, 10.10, like, dude, shut up. Like, you don't care about people dying. You don't. Like, you like, because we have so many things now that are just murking people.
Yeah.
And we're like, I'm still gonna jump in my car though. You know what I mean? Like you're not gonna do it. Like if I told you, hey, the making of your glasses exploits blah 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 somewhere blah blah blah, you're gonna be like, hey man, I'm putting these glasses on. Like I get it, my heart cries out, but I'm not gonna basically give up the greater good for the fly in the suit. And a lot of people do. This is why people like free healthcare. We could easily do that. And we can fix the problems as they come along. Just like we fix the problems with, because what's happened now, we're at a point where the people that have benefited from the previous way of thinking, like, you know what? I don't care what the effects of slavery are going to be. We're going to do it because we can, and we'll deal with the consequences later. They benefited from that. But now everybody is like hyper cautious about doing anything. So we're in this frozen now where nothing is really changing at a rapid pace as far as your basic quality of life. Because everybody's like, well, what's that going to do to everybody else? But if it even hurts one person, then it's not worth doing. And I'm like, well, damn, I remember I used to think when I was a kid, like I'm using a lot of wooden pencils, like I wonder how many trees I'm chopping down using this pencil. Like I said, there's nothing a human being can do that's not going to leave a footprint on the planet. Is this to say that we should just be, you know, crazy? No, I'm saying that if we're already harming the planet, no matter what we do, we should configure it to where it causes less harm to the most human beings at the same time. So why are we spending money on, let's say, B-2 bombers and missiles and not healthcare? Like, you know what I mean? Like it literally would do more good for more people. And who knows what the unintended consequences would be, but I'm sure they're better than building literal bombs. Like we will gladly build a literal bomb that has one outcome, murder, death, and destruction, before we do like, hey, let's do, you know, everybody gets $1,000. Like, oh, that sounds dangerous. That sounds, what could go wrong with it? You don't even know what the ramification, what about the economy? Right, everybody says that. And so until you realize that, not to get into the weeds, but that the economy, and I'm sure young people do know this, that the economy is just V-Bucks. It's just Fortnite. Like it's not, it's literally not real. Which is why like nothing bad has really happened, even though bad shit has happened. Like you're thinking like, oh my God, we're gonna explode as a country. All they do is mitigate the issues downward. But like you didn't see like Amazon shutter their doors or these big companies, they got absorbed like amoeba, but they're like, oh man, Goldman Sachs, they have to close down. Like, no, they're still going strong.
These people are investing the most that they ever have now. Like
People are investing the most. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So like, but there's always this hand-wringing over where is the, like, we got the stuff. And to put a point on this ramble, like, I want to invest, not exclusively, but I definitely want to get forefront spotlight creatives more than just about anybody, because we have the ability to literally think outside of the box. And I think 2020 showed people that they need that. They need people to basically get out of the confines of just day to day, like, hey, maybe we can do work over Skype and do this. Like, that's a creative thing. That's not a, like, something like that, because otherwise it goes to that realm of possibilities thing I talked about. 2020 pushed so many ideas close together that was so far apart. That's why we couldn't get Black Lives Matter or any of that shit going, because it's like, what are you guys talking about? Things are great. 2020 fucking, and I thought it was hilarious how people were acting like a lot of stuff that happened in 2020 was like this new phenomenon. Like, oh my God, cops are beating on the blacks. Like,
yeah,
cops suck. Like, well, I mean, the 90s and the 60s and the, okay, whatever. It's new to you. I'll let you, rediscover something we already knew. And I'm not harping on issues like that, but I think even in the realm of creativity, people found that they wanted to be creatives in mass numbers. That's another reason why people aren't going back to work. It isn't because they're lazy, it's because they want to do what makes them feel good. It's the best medicine. And I'm not talking about hedonism. I'm talking about that deep, fulfilling, like, I can't wait to get up and talk to this crazy Black guy for an hour about the craziest shit. That was my day. Then You're going to log off of here feeling good about today versus like, oh, I got to go work a 9 to 5 that I hate, but I got to do it because they got the gun to my head, because they got all my health care and finances and resources are all trapped behind making somebody else rich. That's bullshit. And people are waking up to knowing that that's bullshit. I've known for a long time. That's why I quit my job I had 15 years ago and never looked back. Because I realized I'd rather suffer on my own terms. And I did suffer financially, don't get me wrong. It wasn't fucking pie in the sky, but it felt good. It was hard to explain. It's almost like you see those fuckers that climb mountains and shit. Like, why are they doing that? That shit's gotta suck. But then they get to the top and they're like, yes.
Yeah, it's great. It's a great feeling. It's the best feeling in life.
It's the best feeling.
The journey up the mountain it's like my favorite. Actually, the journey down is my favorite. But like journey up is like one of the most rewarding things. Yeah.
Oh shit! I just pulled out of nowhere, but
yeah.
like, that's what
man.
I do. So you know what I'm talking about. You're one of the crazy people. Yeah. Like, dude, if you climb mountains, there's literally nothing you should be afraid of.
I'm not much. No, I love it. I love
cool.
looking down. It's the greatest, walking across a little ice bridge, and you can die in a couple seconds. But
like,
I'm not
hypocritically,
going to.
I would never do that shit. I only would do it metaphorically.
It makes you feel alive. It really does. I think my favorite conversation ever on top of a mountain was just like me and my friend from high school. We go, like, we don't climb them quite yet. Like, we're working our way up. But we're going on some pretty hard adventures. But we just like talk about, like, most people aren't up here. Like,
no,
there's a very few people this high in the earth right now.
It's a perspective. It's a perspective that changes you. And there's like experiencing something like a consumer, and then there's experiencing something that actually changes, once again, the way your brain's wired.
Yeah, I think so. I think it changes the way I think about a lot of things.
It does. That's why mountains are in every mythology. There's always a thing either deep above the mountain or deep below the mountain, but never at the, just sitting there at the base of a mountain. Like, oh, here's the hammer here. You could just pick it up without any trial or tribulation. No, I tell people this all the time, that opportunity and safety do not coexist. Like, you gotta, the opportunity is always in the most dangerous aspect of life. And by dangerous, I mean, financial danger, sometimes even physical danger, but most of the danger that Americans are afraid of is psychic danger. They're afraid of a public humiliation or some embarrassment of doing something wrong and failing. When, to me, if you can get used to eating failures, then there's really nothing that can stop your life. That's really the secret, is that fail and fail often. And then you'll actually, because especially if you're going towards a goal, you can build off of that. And people, once again, it's going to dovetail perfectly with a minute and a half. That's literally what the video game structure is. Like I said, that's what's so frustrating, that the structure is right there and people don't apply that to their real lives. They're like, nah, that's scary. I'll die 1,000 times in Dark Souls, or in real life, dying would be equivalent to failing 1,000 times to get a goal. But really, it's not even going to be that extreme. Like, dude, you might fail 2 or 3 times, and then the 4th time it worked. But we're so afraid of one failure because of the way we've been conditioned. I think it harms the culture. So we got less than a minute. I'll let you lead us out.
Yeah, thanks so much for the conversation today, Terry. It was nice to have you on and talk to you again.
No problem, brother.
I'll give you a call in the future, see how you're doing, man.
All right, man. Awesome.
Thank you.
See you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to this episode, and I hope you enjoyed our conversation. I know I haven't been keeping up to weekly episodes, so I'm thinking about incorporating in some solo episodes. Just got to think more directly about what my talking points could be. What can I talk about for an hour? But let me know what you thought about this conversation and how you guys like Terry, and go from there. Thank you for watching.